Hey everyone, welcome to Investor Lounge with Cap Fund. I'm Alex Bogumil, owner-operator of Capital Fundings and Capital Fundings Mortgage Fund 1. Today we're all in for a treat. We've got Brian Martinez, who is a Capital Fundings borrower, and he is here to share his story of how he got into the fix and flip game. He's going to provide a lot of insight to not only the good times, but the tough times where he faced some challenges getting out of some properties and how he was able to escape that and kind of where he's going from there, his strategy moving forward on fix and flip and his new business venture. It's really, really interesting. I think it's very valuable that we, as investors, understand that there are ups and that there are downs and that we're just trying to mitigate that risk and get through it if we have any issues. So let's learn from Brian's experiences to help make us all more profitable and enjoy. Brian, thanks for coming in today. We're very excited. You can share your story with all of our Central Florida and Cap Funding investors. Why don't you just start by telling us how you got into real estate and becoming an investor?
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
So my story, it's a unique story. It actually started from, believe it or not, a tragedy, Alex.
Okay.
My mother, she passed away from colon cancer in her 50s. And she left a little life insurance money behind for me, even though during that time I was telling her to, drop her policy and all that because she was, limited income and all that. And I'm glad she didn't listen to me. And so when she passed away from colon cancer, I was left with not a lot of money, but enough money to make a move. And I looked into different businesses. I was looking into franchises. I even looked at an after school tutoring company like Mathnasium, stuff like that. And I was working with a friend at the time who introduced me to the realtor that he's still my realtor to this day. And he said, Brian, I think you might be good at doing fix and flips. You should give it a go. And that's how this whole thing started. So in many ways, not to get like overly sentimental about it, but in many ways, like doing this business and, succeeding is in many ways how I honor her. Yeah. So that's how I got my start, man.
Yeah, she's still with you out
Yes,
there.
sir.
Yeah, very cool. Well, so your first flip, where was it? Tell me about your first one. Because that had to be very personal, right?
It was scary. It was very scary. The very first fix and flip. So I started my LLC in November of 2018. By January of 2019, we were already in our first fix and flip. The analytics were never the problem for us. We had a good deal going. I think we bought it in the low twos. The AR.
Who got you the deal? Was it your realtor?
Right, wholesaler, just a random wholesaler that I got an email from. I guess he called when that I opened up an LLC and market of it. I saw the deal, and I had a team of realtors. I had two at the time.
Okay.
Hey guys, do the analytics for me. I didn't even know what ARV was and all that stuff back then. So they're like, no, and so they had a GC that they were working with at the time, and
The wholesaler.
my realtor.
The realtors, as they were doing flips also.
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
They just knew a guy who started, and I had no managing construction experience or anything like that. So I did what a lot of people do. With you don't have experience, you hire a guy.
Yeah.
That supposedly does everything. And so we got into the deal. Put it this way, that rehab nowadays I get it done for maybe 40. Yeah. I ended up spending about $120,000 on that first rehab back then. Yeah. And
Was it permitted? Was it licensed?
the roof was. We got the roof permitted. And we speaking of the roof, we spent $20,000 on that roof, which nowadays I'd probably do it for like 12, even at today's price. Yeah. But the roof leaked 5 times on me. I kid you not, 5 times. And while we were under contract, it started leaking during the inspection period. The leak happened right in the master room on the staging, so leak right on the bed. And so the flip was a disaster. I was getting ready to lose $30,000. I was having panic attacks. At the time, I was in DC in a field trip with my youngest. He's 17 now, but he was like 9 or.
I was gonna say you were married and kids at the time.
That's right. And so here he is sleeping, and I'm talking to the realtors about, we're under inspection, we're panicking. I'm looking, staring down the barrel of a $30,000 loss. And that's when I had my first panic attack. And thankfully, my realtors didn't listen to me. They let me sleep on things, and they were able to negotiate it. And I only ended up losing $5,000.
Okay.
Now, today, I would have made 50 on that deal all day. Easy what you're doing. Yeah. And then, I started, the workmanship was being criticized and all sort of things. So from that initial pain point, I was like, okay, I need to learn this.
Okay, so you were hands off on the first flip. You just kind of showed up.
Yeah, I would
Observed,
exactly.
but you weren't involved swinging hammers or doing anything like
None of
that.
that.
Where was the flip at?
Maitland.
Maitland. Okay. So you've done all your stuff, Central Florida.
Central Florida, yeah. Orange County, Seminole. We've done stuff in Polk, Brevard, Volusia.
So you lose money, right? You lost $5,000. You almost had a panic attack.
Mm-hmm.
You're working though full time at that point, right?
No. So I went.
Oh,
do this. I was.
Oh,
All
that's
in.
that's right. I thought you were, when you got started, you were full time somewhere else.
No, not at all.
Doing this on the side.
No, and that's
No, so this was, hey, this is going to be my career.
absolutely.
And you got welcomed with a $5,000 loss. All right. So how long was that flip for?
So it now, he didn't take too long to do it. We got it done in 60 days. We ended up selling it. There was a lot of weird things going on doing the flip. Like I would notice things like I wasn't allowed to buy my own materials.
Yeah.
Which is weird. And when I confronted him about that, he said, well, that's not how it works. I'm like, what do you mean?
Should work however I wanted to. Or
Yeah,
I don't write the check.
you literally took the words out of my mouth. That's exactly right. And so I just started doing kind of an audit on, okay, what am I actually being charged for?
$6,000 fan.
Yeah. The granite countertops, those basic level one granite that all the flippers basically use for most of their flips. Nowadays, I get that for $25 a square foot.
Okay.
That granted, right? He was, and I went to his supplier. They didn't want to give me the price that.
Yeah. He was just doubling.
Right. So I asked a question in a different way. I'm like, okay, well, let me ask it to you this way. If I come off the street and I'm asking you to do this for me, well, would you charge? Oh, it's $30 a square foot.
30.
Yeah. He was charging me $100 a square foot for that granite. So it was an insane markup.
So he made a ton of money.
Oh, yeah. He was the one that made good money on that deal.
So 2 months and then another 2 months to sell it, probably right to closing. So 4 months, you lost $1,250 a month. That's your salary now, $1,250 negative. So what made you, one, you say, let's do this again? Or secondly, your wife saying, yeah, this is a good idea, honey. Keep going.
I knew I had something going here.
You liked it.
I did like it. I did like, and the idea of working for yourself, my background has been in B2B sales, and I've done that in different ways. Most of the time I did it as a 1099. So I was already used to working for myself. And I really, and I should backtrack a little bit. I didn't have a full-time job, but I did have that 1099 business, which I'm not involved in it anymore. It was selling like legal services, but I still get residuals from that. I get like $200 a month easily to this day, which is kind of cool, And so,
Life dinner.
right, that's right. I still had a little bit of income coming in from that. I just didn't have a W-2 job. I didn't work in the W-2 world for too long. I'd say, if I started my sales career when I was maybe 20 years old. I think maybe 5 years. I'm turning 42 in June.
Okay.
Maybe 5 years out of that whole time frame, I had a regular W-2 job. But even those W-2 jobs were in B2B sales.
Gotcha. All right. So now you move on to your second one. Do you remember where that one was?
Winter Park
Winter
off Forsyth and University.
Okay.
And he was actually,
It's not too far from where I grew up.
really, oh, that's cool. He was technically involved in that deal, but
The contract.
yes, because all these problems. But I was already on to him. I was doing, I call them MGI audits, and I was just looking at everything.
Yeah.
And, it was eating a lot of humble pie, man. I'm not going to, I would go into like businesses, and they were telling me like, listen, if you're going to do this, you need to understand your costs. What's the price? You should have things down to your price per square foot on paint, on floors. A lot of that stuff you can negotiate. And so you just start learning. And so I started questioning him more and more. And then eventually I had to actually let him go because he didn't want me, again, to pay for my own materials.
Raising a little too deep.
Most of the project was already done. So I had to get like backsplash done. Right. And he did all right with that one. And then that was the first deal that I actually made some money on.
How much you make on that one?
Like 20, 425 around.
Yeah, how much is that? And are you using your money at this point, or are you using a loan?
Yeah, I always started with hard money loans, put in the down payment, but my first loan was horrible. I had to put 25% down and they didn't finance the rehab. So I had all this money.
So you went all in on there and lost money.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now you're in Winter Park. You made money on that, so you got the good feeling from that. When now you're down to, or you're through two full rehabs, and you're becoming profitable. And when did you start? Now I know like Capital Fundings has done, I think it's 9 loans.
That's right.
Yeah, 9 loans with you for almost $2 million. When did you start doing multiple properties at a time?
So that started really, so this was 2019. By second half of 2020,
Okay,
that's when I started doing those.
you did a couple. You got successful, and you're like, okay, let's ramp it up a little. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I know you from dealing with you through all those 9 loans. You're an analytical person, you know. Were you analytical before you got involved with like the contractor steal money from you? Or is this something you like, hey, I've got to learn this skill now to really get detailed and analyze every single facet of the renovation?
Sure. No, I was always analytical. You know, when you're in sales guys, we love numbers. So you're always looking at numbers and all that. So that piece was never an issue for me. What I was lacking, the skill I didn't have at the time, was learning how to manage construction. And I truly believe this, that a big part of fixing and flips is knowing how to manage construction. I mean, you can hire a contractor, but you have to kind of cross your fingers and hope that they have your best interests at heart, that they're giving you fair pricing, or you can do what I've done and a lot of people have done, is learn how to do that yourself.
To manage it, yeah.
Yeah.
I've got investors that use a GC, and I've got one guy that's really successful with the GC, and his scope of work is always probably about 25% too high.
Mm-hmm.
However, he gets his properties done in like 30 days,
Right.
and he sells them really quick. And the quality work is really, really good. And he's profitable. He's making money on them. And he's come back and done multiple loans with me, and maybe some other lenders out there as well. So like that method works for him going the GC route.
Absolutely.
But if you can actually replace that, you know, and this is your full-time job, so you're able to do that. A lot of investors, you know, are doing this as kind of like a side hustle and can't really be there to monitor it. But so now, all right, so now you're doing multiple properties, right? And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you in today. And I thought that you sharing your story would be really, really valuable to our borrowers and to Central Florida real estate investors, because it's not always like the TV show where everybody hits a home run every single time, you know? So I know when you started coming to me, you're like, Alex, I'm doing multiple properties. I don't want to have just one lender. And I think you were using at the time one of the national lenders that's really large and kind of dominates the market. And you were using them. You said, I want to have a secondary source of funds as well too. And so I think maybe your referral, I think from somebody that
One of your borrowers.
yeah, one of our borrowers, and that's how you came to Capital Fundings. And so we started doing some loans with you, and I know you had success with those first few ones, and then the market shifted a little,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this was when prices were going up too. It was like post-COVID, where prices started going up, and then the market just shifted just a little, right? But you had a lot of properties that you were managing and funding and working on. So when you basically got caught with a liquidity crisis.
Oh yeah.
So it's not always about, hey, I have a bad product or I didn't manage it properly. Sometimes it's about just taking on too much. And then when some of the variables change, you don't have an answer to it or the capital backing for it. So maybe you could share that, like when you got into that trouble, and kind of share your story with everybody, is, you know, what happened, and just share that, and just so people know, like, hey, the fix and flip game isn't like it is on TV where everyone wins and it's always this beautiful story, and you're driving your Lambo and your Mercedes SUV and all that, you know. So just share that story with us about, you know, that time during your fix and flip career.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go back a little bit just to kind of lead up to this, right? Because 2019, I'm still learning, right? finding new subs, figuring things out after working with that initial GC, which I later found out that he wasn't really a GC. His license had expired in the 90s. 2020, when COVID hit, it was a little scary with the lending the first half of the year.
Yeah.
I was in the middle of my second deal in Winter Park, and the national lender I was using at the time, in the middle of the deal, changed my terms. So I went from, I think it was 15% down to like 40. I didn't have the money. So
you're under contract, you hadn't closed, the credit hit, everybody was freaked out. Everybody freaked out, and investors were freaked out.
absolutely. And then, but by the second half of 2020, if I'm remembering how this all went, things started changing. Like, oh, wait a second, housing started getting going crazy. And then 2021 was insane. I couldn't sell these homes fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
All of 2021, I maybe had around $6,000 of holding costs. I did about 8 flips that year.
Mm-hmm.
By the time 2022 hit, the beginning of 2022 was insane as well. But once interest rates started going up by the second half of 2022, I went from 2021 only having $6,000 in holding costs for the whole year. I mean, some homes I would sell them even before I had my first mortgage payment. Yeah. And then by the second half of 2022, I had 1 month that over $20,000 came out of my account.
Yeah.
Now, I always had reserves. Even when I was making good money, I had always this weird rule, which is like, we're going to reward ourselves, but I'm not going to spend any more than 10% of what I was making to, go on vacation, buy some cool stuff for the wife or things like that. But
one treat per deal.
Right. One treat per deal. But you start getting hit with that, you can have almost all the reserves in the world. And if you have all these homes sitting on the market, and it's because interest rates went up, the shock of it, I had one specific deal in Winter Park under contract, and it was the week of closing. The buyers were ready to go. We were fine. Their lender changed the terms on them, so they went from 10% down to 30% down. They couldn't do it.
Yeah.
They didn't even fight me on the E&I.
It's you, it's the end borrower.
That's right.
Buyer too, yeah.
This was, I think, September, October of 2022. They didn't even fight me on the EMD. They just signed a release. So they lost $5,000 on that.
Oh, yeah.
But then I wasn't able to sell that house. And I think this is one you funded. I wasn't able to sell that house till the first quarter of 2023. So now this home is sitting much longer. The reserves are dwindling, and it just became a nightmare.
Yeah, we talk about that, how you got to really understand your holding costs, and then how long you're projecting that holding period to be, and how much does that eat into your profit if you're holding it an extra 2, 3, 4 months. That's right, it's real. Like it goes like that, especially on the larger houses. And if you're doing flips in Winter Park or Maitland, those price points are higher, those loan amounts are higher, your payments are higher, everything's higher. So it's like you better get rid of that, or else, the green and the one tree goes to, honey, we're in trouble.
That's right.
Yeah. So all right. So at your peak, then 2023, when it started, I don't want to say crumbling, but when it started, like panic here, like how many houses were you holding at that point?
I think I
had 2, maybe with 2 to 3 with us.
Yeah. And then I had another 2 or 3 with the national lender. So I had anywhere at any time 5 to 6.
Yeah. So 6 properties, 20 grand, probably some, you $20,000. And that's probably just interest payments. That's not
right.
Doesn't electric bills, taxes, everything else, maybe lawn maintenance, pool maintenance, whatever it may be. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that gets scary. So,
and then one more thing, if I might add, I wasn't able to, so my income kind of stopped, right?
Yeah.
So I had these homes selling. I couldn't get into another deal. So here you are spending,
Yep.
no cash flow coming in.
Yep.
And one of the things I think we've even discussed is that I started in 2019. So a lot of investors that I knew at the time, they were able to build their wealth from 2008, 2010, 2011, 2012. So I didn't get that time.
We're fresh into it.
Yeah, but
you did have 10 years of run up of easy to like, we saw a lot of the people that did the best on flips back then were the beginners, because they would flip the house and it would take them a year to get it to market because they didn't know what they were doing. And the price would appreciate so much that versus someone like you that just bought it, renovated it 30 days later to market, the prices couldn't go up as much. But that person that held it for an extra year, the prices went up 10 to 15% just naturally.
Right.
I think 13% was like an average, right? So 13% just for holding it because of their incompetence, versus someone like you that holds it for 1 month, which is maybe like a 1% price increase.
Right.
And you don't really get to ride that wave. So yeah, that was a lot of people that got started later didn't get to really experience that. So, all right, so you got 5 or 6 properties, right? Now I mean, who could project kind of things being put on hold, interest rates go up. And then it's also, you get in this battle of, hey, I'm going to list my house at 500,000 because I need it to be 500,000. That's what's going to make me, we'll just say $50,000, right? And then you're a little hesitant to go down to 475 where the market may be, but you're thinking 500. And I remember phone calls with us, like, it doesn't just keep going up and up and up. Like, we really got to really, really believe, like, oh, once I list this property, by then it'll be worth X amount of dollars, So there was a tail off, and we've had it for the last couple of years on the national level and here locally. I was actually just reading a stat since COVID prices went up nationally like 37% post COVID. And then here was like over 50%, right? The last 2 years have been, median prices have just been neutral. So we're now, if you average all this out, we're now getting to around like a 6% increase per year, annual increase, which is more consistent with about 5% is historically how much houses appreciate each year. So now if you take an average over 6, 7, 8 years, we're now closer towards 6%. So hopefully we're just going to kind of level out for a little, let incomes rise a little, and affordability will come back kind of in that Central Florida market. That's kind of what we're hoping to see. So all right, so you've got 6 properties. And I remember you calling me, and this was, I don't want to call it a workout situation, but it was like, and you're always very honest, which is what I like. A lot of borrowers will just put their head in the sand and you don't hear from them. You're like, hey, I got to talk to you about my loans. And here's what it is. How can we get through this? And those are with the calls I got from you. And I think it was 3 loans. And we kind of worked out a plan, and we were, flexible in working with you. You had experience with us. I knew your product was good. I knew you just got caught in a little timing issue. And it's kind of like, once you can release one, you can move on to the second one and release that one and the third one. And as you do that, things will ease up and you'll get back into a comfortable spot. But I know it was tough for you. Like that period was really, really tough for you. Could you share, like, I mean, you have a family, you have kids, like now income is shut off. And not only is income shut off, you're coming out of your checking, your savings, maybe pulling out of stocks or wherever you can get money to pay the bills, So share a little about that. Like, I know you said you almost had a panic attack. Did you have any panic attacks with this? So like
Constantly.
Yeah, like
Constantly.
how did you get through? Like what were you feeling, and how did you get through that?
Yeah. So, thankfully I've been pretty fortunate. So I was, she was my girlfriend at the time. We got married. I got remarried in December of 2022. And so my now wife, she had been laid off from her long-time job during COVID.
Yeah.
But, they took good care of her. She got a great severance. She got her 401k and all that stuff. But during that time, I was making a lot of money. So I was like, hey, there's no need for you to really get another job. Why don't you just come down with me? So keep in mind, I'm the sole income provider. And then, I have 2 kids from the previous relationship, but they lived with me 50-50. My oldest, now she lives with me full time. My daughter, she'll be 21 in August. So a lot of conversations. She had some money because I was running out of money fast.
Yeah, it goes.
And it comes really quick.
And when you're writing checks, things coming in, it's scary. I've been there before.
It is.
It's scary.
It really is. And I knew, even when I was making a lot of money, I didn't have this fantasy that it would last forever. I remember telling my realtor, I'm like, this can't be sustainable. Like this, I mean, I'll take the money. Yeah. But I just knew, I didn't realize what was going to happen. But I just like this, homes where I had a house that I sold in 2 hours for $10,000 over ask. That's just not normal.
Yeah.
And
everyone got used to that. And now there's a market. It's really back to kind of historical averages.
That's right.
And people are like, oh, the market's really, really bad. And we'll see where it goes. But, it's kind of just back to normal. Everyone just was super, super spoiled for a while.
Big time. And so a lot of difficult conversations at home. The stress was real. You're seeing all this money, running up debt and all sorts of things just to try to keep it going. And at least with you, you were working with, but the other loans, the national lender was like, well, sorry, buddy, you're
on your own. Yeah. How did this loans go?
there was no flexibility. So I was being hit with, default interest,
Was the national lender, were they the actual servicer, or was that a third party that was?
They were on the servicer.
Okay. So you could talk to somebody. Were they local here?
No. I mean, it was a 20-something-year-old frat out of,
So probably never got the house.
not at all. I think he was like 24. Nice guy. But what do they know about this? All right.
Yeah. Or they're just, they're just getting instructions from somebody else. So they can't be like, hey, you know what? Let's work through this. Like they don't really have a solution. The solution is, well, you're paying a late fee, you're paying a default interest. And if you don't pay, we're going to foreclose, right?
That's right. And it's
So that adds to the other stress. Like, damn, I got this business that I believe in, that I want to do for the rest of my life. And now I'm going to have, when you have a foreclosure, it's a stamp on you, and it'll travel with that LLC. And nowadays it's easier to research LLCs, and not only LLCs, but the member of the LLC or manager, and then who else that manager member is a part of a different LLC. So it's not like I'll just open another LLC. We've gotten to the point now where data is so prevalent that we can see, okay, Brian, you're a member of this LLC, and now you're also a member of this LLC. And if we can tie the two together, we may be hesitant to lend on you.
Of course. Yeah, of course. No, absolutely. So all this stuff was kind of converging. You're having conversations of like, man, are we going to need to get jobs again? And to me, again, I've always had an entrepreneur spirit since I was really young. So
that was easy. That'll defeat like I got hired at 9 to 5.
Yeah. Well, and at my peak with fix and flips, I was making more than almost anybody I knew in any W-2 job I had. Directors, VP, I was surpassing all those guys.
Yeah.
And doing it on your own terms.
That's why I got into the business.
Yeah.
Because I was working the 9 to 5, 8 to 7 probably, and seeing all these guys make a ton of money doing this investment stuff. And I'm like, damn, I think I'm smarter than these guys, but they're producing better results than me.
Right. Sure.
Yeah. So, all right. So, are you through the storm now?
We're almost.
I know you satisfied all your cash fundings loans.
Yeah,
they worked with you, and sometimes it's just a month or two delay, and then you get that interest check, and then you get that satisfaction. But as always, like for us, we knew like, hey, he's got, we see the pictures, we've seen the houses, they're great renovations, they're done right. You definitely. That was one thing about you as a borrower. You always had a good product, really from the start with us. I don't know about your first project or your second project, but with us, you always put out a good product. It was a quality renovation with, nice, not only materials but style. Your style was good, because sometimes people renovate these things, they're like, whoa.
Yeah, really.
These black high floors really aren't doing it for me.
It's cool for your personal home, but you have to.
Yeah.
When you're doing fix and flips, you can't really go by maybe what you want, right? For my house, I renovated my house in June of 2021, making a lot of money, and I did it all cash. I didn't finance or anything like that. And my aesthetic was really different. I had these, blue shaker cabinets, these really cool exotic quartzite countertops. Yeah, I didn't even know what quartzite was at the time. I was like, wow, that's cool, and we got it, But keep in mind, like I was also getting things at a cost that, I shouldn't even. I mean, my countertop guy would let me go and shop directly with his supplier and stuff like that, but just because of relationships. But I wouldn't really put that kind of style in a fix and flip. You have to, in my view at least, you have to do these renovations to what appeals to the larger audience as possible. So back then it was a lot of your grays and white shakers and things like that, and you also fix and flip depending on the price point. If you're going in the more affordable side, you do a different kind of countertops. If you're going more of a higher price point, different kind of buyer, more sophisticated buyer, higher income,
you get stuff.
Then you put different kind of finishes with that. You maybe go with little quartz, maybe some gold finishes, and the trends change. You want to stay in touch with that. So
what are some ways that you're staying in touch with trends? Because I know you're still doing this.
Yeah.
And I always like to ask, and I'll ask another question next. But as far as trends, like, are you watching other podcasts? Are you reading books? Are you online? Are you on Pinterest? Like, what are you doing to say, hey, this is the next trend? Like, we're transitioning from gray floors to the next thing.
Right.
Like, what are you doing to understand that and keep up with the trends and in the end, make your days on market less because you've got a better product that's moving quicker.
That's right. Yeah.
And right now, like what we're seeing out there in the market is that even with sales prices being pretty much flat, renovated houses that are done nice, not just average or poor quality renovated houses, but nicely renovated houses are still selling very, very quickly. I mean, we've actually in the last 5 months had the most loan satisfactions that we've ever had in our history. So people are still selling their properties, but I do think it has to come with that premium renovation.
Absolutely.
So what are you doing to, like, maybe you could share, like, maybe I don't know, is there a site, a source, or anything that you're doing to just stay on top of your renovation game? What do you use?
Really, in all of the above. It's important in this kind of industry to stay current. And one of the things I learned early on when I was 20 years old is the value of personal development in whatever industry you're in, right? If you're in sales, okay, well, who are the sales gurus? Let me learn.
Gotcha.
And so you never stop learning. I mean, I just saw Warren Buffett. He announced, he's soon to be retired.
I'm 100. I'm retired.
Right, I'm 100 about time. But even, he said he said something once that really appealed to me. He said, you can't take action every day, but you can learn every day. Yeah. And so even at my worst, when things were really stressed out, I was always constantly trying to learn things, whether it's joining a mastermind group in real estate, reaching out. I don't have a problem with communication and having the hard conversations, as you well know.
You're good at
And so what I do feel is that ultimately there's a solution to the problem. That doesn't mean that it won't be painful and that it won't take time, but I also believe that if you don't communicate and you don't have those hard conversations, you're probably never going to solve the problem, and it's more than likely going to get worse.
Yeah, it always gets worse if you don't address it. And that's the one thing, like at Capital Fundings, we really try to do is to kind of have that relationship with our borrowers where it's not just, hey, yeah, we got a shit ton of capital and we'll deploy it to you at 95 or 90% or 85%. But we like to have relationships with our borrowers where you kind of lean on us, like, hey, you can get great advice from us. They know their values. They're here. They know where I'm going to renovate this house, and they can provide some insight as to what they think it's worth and the type of renovation it may need. But also, they service their loans, so I'm dealing with them, and it's not just an account rep that's 20 that's never done this before. And if I need to come to them, I can go sit in his office and beg and say, hey, let's work this out. And we do work it out, and we did. And this was a prime example is, what I thought would be really, really valuable is sharing your story about how, with our loans, in the end, they became a lot cheaper than the other loans. And they're probably very similar at the origination also. But in the end, minus all that stuff, we worked with you and got you through, this cloudy period. So maybe you could share, like, what do you look at when you're entering into a renovation? Like what makes you say, I'm going to do this project? Right. You're analytical.
Sure.
You've got great resources for all the renovations. You've got 2 realtors, on your team, or at least I know
One now.
one. Start out. Yeah. So I know the one. So you've got 1 realtor on your team.
Mm-hmm.
So you got a lot of support. So if a wholesaler comes to you and, Brian, check out this deal, you still buying from
Wholesalers, MLS. Believe it or not, some of my best deals have been on the MLS.
Well, now, yeah, I mean, the market shifts, like a few years ago there wasn't an MLS, but now it's starting to come back a little, and you can find deals because people started sleeping on the MLS, right?
That's right.
So anywhere you come across a deal, wholesaler, MLS, your realtor, whatever the case may be, how are you analyzing it? Do you have any like benchmark as far as like ROI? Or I've got a really large, actually my largest borrower. For him, he wants to do a deal where he says, if I put 50 grand into the renovation, I'd like to make $50,000 on the profit, the bottom line. So what are some maybe metrics you use, or some analysis you use to determine if you want to do that deal?
So for me to even look at the deal any further, I need to see two things. Might be three, but I need to see my purchase price and my rehab costs, estimated rehab costs, to be no more than 75% of the ARV. Now, nowadays, that's changed a little bit because the ARV is a little shifty.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this, that you may see, these comps sold at this price, but when you dig deeper, you're seeing concessions, well, yeah, so there's buy down points and all that. But before all this, generally speaking, that's what I was looking at before I even dig into the deal any further. I've always done inspections on my deals. I know a lot of investors,
Even if it's from a wholesaler?
especially it's from a wholesaler, and I try to negotiate that with them. They don't like it necessarily because they want you to with the EMD and blind and all that, but
Yeah.
I've always resisted that temptation because there's always going to be another deal. So I'm okay passing. Probably some of the best deals I've done are the ones I didn't do.
Yeah.
And so, like, listen, I got to at least do a 4-point. Oh, it's fine. I'm like, I'm sure it is, but I need to at least see what the main, because the cosmetic stuff, I can walk it and get a good idea of what I need to do. But it's those things that you can't see it too.
Yeah.
And Alex, and even when you do the 4-point, there's still things that come up during renovations that you didn't see coming. Like, oh man, that didn't come up in the 4-point.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, doing fix and flips, it's still a risk. So what you're trying to do is mitigate that risk as much as possible. So when you finally get ready to go on the market, you can make a profit. And so that's my approach.
Is there a number you're looking for as far as a return, ROI, or a profit, just absolute profit? Like, hey, I want to make $30,000.
Right.
Or is there anything, like if you had this great deal that was super easy and you'd only spit off $15,000 after all your holding costs, like what's that bottom line? Okay, let's do it.
Right. Well, I never liked low margin deals, making just 15 or even 20, because those low margin deals have a funny way of becoming, break even, or even the worst case scenario, you take a loss. So for me, I need to see at least 50 return conservatively. And those deals are hard to find. We are in a competitive market, especially Orlando and all that. But you figure, okay, if we think conservatively we can net 50. Okay, if things go wrong, if I got to give up 10, does that, okay, I can walk away. Okay, even in the worst case scenario, if I walk away with 15 or 20, okay, I'm walking away with that, but that's still profit. You live to fight another day versus saying, oh, I'm going to make 15. It's cool, 20. But then you find yourself in a situation that you can potentially lose money.
Yeah, when you have a 5-month slip and you make $10,000, it's a little defeating,
Right.
You're like, I got to do better on that.
Right. And that's cool for wholesalers, right? Because they're not necessarily, they're flipping paper. They're not necessarily taking the risk. But, one of the things sometimes I've had some battles with wholesalers. I'm like, you guys are not taking the same risk that I take. At the end of the day, it's Brian Martinez that's signing off on the sale. And so once you sell that property to me, you got your assignment, whatever it is. Now I got to take the risk, and it's a lot on the line with that. Sometimes you have other investors, you're JVing with guys, so talk about having difficult conversations. Not only with your lender, with other folks involved.
But your wholesalers, the ones that you work with, are willing to give you that 4-point inspection.
They are.
Is your relationship?
Yeah, and I negotiate that in different ways. I'll even tell them that, hey, I'll lock it under contract, but give me a 20, because I have a bunch of inspectors
How much is an inspection for this?
like $100.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I get it for $100. Yeah. Sometimes my guy doesn't even charge me, because of the relationship and all that. So it's just, you don't need to do a full inspection. Just do a 4-point. Know what's going on with the roof, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, things like that. And I was like, listen, give me a 24, 48-hour period. I'm more than likely going to execute on the deal, but let me do the 4-point. And if anything crazy comes up, which you should know about it too, because if you're a good wholesaler, you want to disclose that to your borrowers. You don't want to just turn and burn these guys. You want to build a long-term relationship, just like Alex, as the lender, wants to have a long-term relationship with his borrowers.
Well, like a wholesaler, and I just had a discussion with a wholesaler last month about one of our videos, but I'm pro wholesaler, and like there are some good ones and some bad ones, just like every, that's where good lenders, some bad lenders, some good contractors, some bad contractors. So I'm definitely pro wholesaler. Sometimes I think wholesalers don't understand that they can be part of the team and everyone's profitable and they win too, and then that forms like a relationship that you'll never lose, because if that wholesaler's maybe a little understanding, and I know I used to I wholesale for 10 years. I know how it works. It's like first is the check is the one that gets the contract, and then you don't get a contract, you don't get a paycheck as a realtor, So I know the game, but sometimes it's like, hey, yeah, and I had this discussion with the wholesaler. It's like, all I'm trying to do is educate the borrowers so they can form a relationship with you as a wholesaler, and everyone's on the same page so everyone can win. And once it's profitable, it just keeps going, right? Like the circle of buyer, wholesaler, lender, and you find that good partnership where they're part of your team, it really works out and everybody keeps doing business. So just going on record saying I'm very pro wholesaler, especially the good ones. They feed us a lot of business, and they find great houses, So if they're part of your team and willing to work with you, I mean, hold on to that, because that's a valuable relationship.
It really is. In fact, I'll add something to that. So when I was having those initial conversations with you, when things were going bad,
Yeah.
one of the deals that you funded was a wholesale deal. And you and I knew by looking at the numbers, okay, I think you used the words Gator, it was in Titusville. You're like, this one is your saving grace, because that one deal helped me make enough money to offset the losses. And that was a wholesale deal. And I have a great relationship with that wholesaler. I've done wholesale deals myself.
Right.
I'm not really a wholesale.
I may right. Yeah, you did it.
Yeah, a little. I've done some assignments and things like that. And so, yeah, absolutely. A really good and a good wholesaler should have their, investors, cash buyers, whatever, their best interest at heart. Again, you want to keep going back to that guy so they take up the phone.
It's a lot easier to work with a couple people that are happy than try and work with 100 and we're earning bridges. That's right. And that's the same as a lender, and that's the same no matter where you're at. You treat everybody right. You get a couple guys that do a lot of volume with you, and it makes life a lot easier. So, all right. So I know now you're kind of through the storm, right?
Yes.
Are you working on any projects now?
Yes. So I'm always going to do fix and flips. We got a deal going on in St. Pete right now, but that's a JB deal. So
Okay.
for me, and I'll just be, I'm very honest, very transparent. Like I just don't have the stomach to continue taking the risk, at least for now, with fix and flips. But if I find a really good deal,
Yeah.
since I've developed so many relationships with other borrowers, if you have the appetite for it and it looks good, then let's JV on it. I will focus on what my biggest strength is, which is managing construction. I'll bring that project in on time. The fastest fix and flip I ever did was in 2 weeks. That was new roof, cosmetic, AC, everything. I mean, we moved through it quick.
That's valuable, because I've JV with some people and it's 6 months, and it's like,
yeah,
that's a long time to have your capital out.
Oh no, absolutely. And I'll have sometimes 8-10 guys at the job site. If someone's painting outside, why can't you have a couple guys working, the tile guys in the bathroom, maybe the drywall guys doing some patchwork, maybe the cabinet guys are installing. So I try to logistic this in a way that no one's stepping on each other's toes. So it takes a little trial and error to learn how to do that. That's right. Yeah. And you also work in here. Right. Exactly. That's right. So I try to make sure I'm aware of that, and I've gotten much better at it. But I have that deal going on right now, and then we're also doing other projects with the new venture.
So that's what I know, because of how detailed you were, and you were always trying to find the right person to do that job, the right price, but the right quality as well too. So I know you told me, Alex, I've come across hundreds of great contacts, and recently you reached out and said, look, I'm doing this also now where I've got my own business, and I'm using all my knowledge from all of the fix and flips. And I think you've done over 40 plus, right? Yeah. So all these 40 plus contacts, 40 plus fix and flip contacts that I've made and relationships that I've made, and I've seen their work. You've used these people, and now you're providing kind of top to bottom services to do renovations and other things. Tell everyone a little bit about,
Sure.
kind of where your focus is right now.
Right. So because of all the experience and knowledge I acquired doing fix and flips, I developed all these contacts, like you said, and not only all the contacts I have right now, but I have a really deep bench. So like, for example, right now I have like 6 plumbers. And so if one guy's not available, I'll go to another one. But I also have learned how to identify good work. So even if I lose a couple of guys, I don't really stress about that because I know where to recruit them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as simple as this. You can walk, and it helps I speak Spanish in the state of Florida, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So, I mean, I can just pull, and I've done this before. You can pull up to a construction site, just start talking to the guys. You can see how texture should look, this, that, the other.
Yeah, so you know what you're looking. And you're like, don't need to talk to anyone at this house.
That's right. Or, hey, send me some pictures of your work and all that. And then I already have a lot of standard pricing with things we do with price per square foot, but they also, I help them understand what we're doing here. I'm not just going to give you one job. So yeah, you're working for me at a discount, but I'm going to give you ongoing business. It's going to be consistent. I make sure I always pay them. Even if we have a dispute and I have to let them go, I don't pay for work that's not completed. I pay you for what you did, and then we move on. Not everything has to escalate into a full-on conflict. You can and sometimes I just put these guys in a timeout, for 6 months, and then, hey, Brian, I got you. Okay, we got something for you. So it's a lot of managing personalities, right? But also understanding how the work should look like, how long it should take, what it should really cost. All these things I've learned through just trial and error or meeting other successful investors that have really taught me how to do this the right way. What I didn't realize during this whole process, because the new venture has been an ongoing conversation for years.
What's the name of the new company?
MGI Restorations.
Okay.
And so one of the things that, it has been shared with me is that the value of managing construction, there's just not a lot of people that even like doing that. A lot of investors don't like doing it because it's not fun. I like it. I'm kind of a nerd with it. I love ordering materials. I love going to Floor and Decor. It's like my favorite place to get tiles and stuff like that. And then, what's kind of cool, and these are just little side benefits to this, right? When you're spending a lot on construction and materials, you rack up a lot of points.
Yeah.
So one of the hacks I learned through this is like, I subsidize a lot of my vacations. You got a lot of free vacations and all that just by doing my job, basically. And so we started venturing out, and now I'm in a position that I can manage not only projects for other investors, I'm definitely well qualified for that, but I'm even bidding on larger scale jobs. I'm bidding on an $8 million hotel right now. And that was just through relationships of people I knew. My realtor connected me to one of his friends. Okay. That friend connected me to a very prominent GC that moved down here in 1980 to build Epcot. And so we had a dinner.
That's big time.
Yeah, it's huge, right? And he has all the knowledge in the world.
Well, this ball. All right, guy.
Exactly. And he was really casual about it. And me and my family were huge Disney fans. Like, I got married on a Disney cruise. All right. So when he started talking about Disney, I'm like, oh, and he starts giving me all this info. I mean, stuff I think he probably shouldn't even tell me. I mean, how Disney was operating. It's just fascinating stuff. I love construction. I could talk about that stuff all day. But here's his problem, right? He has all the knowledge. He's an engineer. So he's kind of a unicorn. He has a GC license and he's an engineer, but he doesn't have the crew. He doesn't have the resources. So one of the things I was explaining to him is like, listen, if you need 20, 30 guys to deploy to a job site to do drywall finishes and things like that, I have that.
So now you're managing all of the contacts that you met, and you're working with homeowners, investors, and you could work with an investor from start to finish.
That's right.
All trades, right?
All trades.
Yeah.
That's right.
And then also doing some commercial type stuff, possibly with like what you said about Epcot. That's right. Through that contact. So borrowers like us and people that we're lending to, if they're stuck on a project or they just don't have a trade, they could reach out to you from any aspect of it. Like, hey, I need countertops, or my electrician's out of town, or I'm just not happy with my electrician, or I need a plumber. A lot of people, what's the cost of your guy to do a replumb?
That's right.
A change out. So they can reach out to you, and then this is the service now that you're doing. So you're helping other investors, and you're working on several projects with this right now as well too, where you're kind of overseeing a whole phase for them, or you can do any level. You could oversee it all and kind of almost maybe mentor with a new investor type relationship, and you're now providing all your expertise to get the job done with people that are trusted because you've hired them to do your work. So you know them, you vetted them, and you know their quality of work and their reliability and their pricing too.
So that's right. That's right. And I think that's really important as far as the mentorship thing. When I first started in this business, I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
And there was one individual, and I didn't mention this earlier in our conversation, but there was one individual that I met that really changed kind of the game for me. and a old school investor. And I always wanted to meet investors that started working in real estate before the financial crisis of '08, because I was really curious to see what happened during that time. I was thinking ahead and like, hey, know your history, right? As far as this business. And we just happened to be looking at the same property. It was a wholesale deal. We just started talking, and I guess he liked me because he ended up just bringing me to active projects that he was doing for the rest of the afternoon. So I ended up spending the rest of the day with him, and he was the one who really educated me, like, hey, you need to understand your costs with this, price per square foot on floors and paint and all that.
Look out for.
Yeah, and even little things like, okay, when you're done with a roof, a lot of times the roofers leave the leftover shingles and materials, and he's like, what are you doing with those materials? I'm like, oh, well, we throw them away or whatever. He's like, well, that's you paid for that. That's your money. So
Yeah.
even every dollar counts. And so he really, really educated me with that. And to this day, I still use a lot of his contacts, including my cabinet guy, who's, believe me, I've tried to find someone else with a more cost effective, and I just I can't find it. And
So now you're passing along what you got from this guy to other investors. Yeah, that's cool. So, and how do you like this new project, new business, and you're in, compared to the fix and flip, or maybe now it's,
yeah,
I always recommend fix and flip is great. It's not meant for everyone to do full time.
that's right.
Very good supplemental income as well too.
It is.
So now you're kind of doing that model where it's supplemental, a fix and flip, or JB fix and flip could be supplemental to this business where you're now doing your renovations for other investors over different projects.
Correct. Fix and flips has now become more of the quote unquote side hustle for me, kind of like the legal services were back then. Like I said earlier, I'm always going to do fix and flips. I love doing fix and flips, but it's a different structure. I'd rather give 50% and not take any risk than take 100% of the profit and take all the risk.
Yeah.
And I'm cool with that. I'll just manage to rehab. I'm excellent at it. And so what I like about this new venture is that the opportunity, early indications at least, right? We'll see. But everything I'm learning is that it could potentially rival anything I ever did with fix and flips. I was even talking to my accountant about, the new direction that we're going. And he paused for a second and he says to me, Brian, I have a lot of clients that started doing what you're doing just to make ends meet. And next thing you know, they land a multi-million-dollar contract, they become millionaires overnight, so on and so forth. So it takes time, just like anything else. You got to get your name out there. You got to build trust with the the GC Disney guy I was talking about. He's an old school guy. He's 60 in his 60s, but these are relationships that potentially will help extend his career because he can't take on jobs because he doesn't have the people. He's just hiring another GC.
Yeah.
Well, why not bring in Brian, who I'm going to come in at the cost, and I don't need to be the number one. That's another thing I learned throughout this journey. I don't need to be necessarily the number one guy. You can make a lot of money being guy number 4, guy number 5, guy number 6, without taking all that risk and all that pressure of being the man. Yeah. So I don't have an ego with this. I'm okay working in any capacity.
Do you foresee maybe a GC license in your future?
Yes, that's a great question. So I'm actually in the process right now, again, through one of just resources and contacts that I met by reaching out and learning, joining different real estate groups. I connected with someone who's gonna you can have someone with a license. The license is attached to the individual.
Yeah.
So the individual, he can do what's called, he or she, right, can do what's called GC qualifying your LLC. And there's the structure that you have to, follow, whether you put them on payroll or, they're involved. There's all these things, but it's not complicated. And then that allows you to be able to pull permits and do that. I can pull permits now. I just asked whoever it is to pull the permits. Or sometimes I'll even have my licensed plumber pull the permit for me. And because of the relationship and trust, and they know my work, they know my guys are going to do everything up to code. As long as it passes inspection with the city, it's all good. But it takes a lot of trust to do that kind of thing. So yeah, so and we should be getting that done really by the end of this month. So I'm actually meeting with him next week, as he's had what's called, there's your residential, as far as I understand it, there's your residential contract license, Then you have a builder's license. I think they can go up to like 3 or 4 stories. And then you have the GC license, which those are the guys that can build anything. Skyscrapers.
Yeah, I have a friend who's got the residential license.
Right. And so he just got what's called his builder's license. And a lot of this stuff I learned with actually one of the properties he financed for me, where I got stuck in a rehab problem that I didn't know what to do. And coincidentally, I have a long time friend that I've known him since we were 13 years old. He was one of my early childhood friends when I just started in this new school. And he happens to be a GC. And so he was one to help me get out of that mess, pull the permits for me, still does. And so him and I have spent probably hundreds of hours just talking and learning about the industry. And he would GC qualify me himself, but he's got like 2 or 3 companies that he's already qualified. And there's limitations on how many you can qualify because, you know, then the state is going to be like, well, wait a second, how did you realistically manage all that? So it's fascinating what that whole industry, it's a whole.
Yeah, you never know, like, you get into fix and flips and you never know where it takes you, right?
Right.
I had a borrower, and this was a young kid. I drove out and met him, and he did one deal and he crushed it. And he just walked away from his old job. He said, I'm not doing that anymore. He was actually working at McDonald's. And fast forward a few years later, he has his GC license. He's doing not residential, commercial stuff, and extremely successful, building out restaurants and warehouse space as well too, just through his GC license. And I'm like, man, I met this guy fresh off his first flip, and he did several loans with us, and now he's moved on to bigger and better. So you never know where it's going to take you. Those are like, you know, your GC license may take you on to a different industry as far as different asset class, you know?
No, and here's the thing too. The relationships I've built over time, I don't like to burn bridges. I have a saying that I'm always telling whoever will listen is I don't like to let my ego get in the way of my progress, right? And so you never know. Like I'll give you another quick example of this because it's fascinating. I have a really good friend that this was my last W-2 job. I was at a professional sales, and he was essentially their sales team. They were my clients. So I was selling a product specifically designed for the hotel space, and he was one of the top salespeople. We stayed in touch. He's now moved up in the ranks. He's now the director of sales. And so he was just giving me an idea of the hotel market in Central Florida. There's like 130 something thousand rooms and so on and so forth. About 48% of those are under his control. And there's no conflict for him to recommend somebody for these hotel owners to do renovations. They have to do refreshes every 7 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And so it's going to a point that potentially, if this goes where I think it could go, he may even walk away from his role because, you know, it's a lot for me to do right now, right? I got to manage the projects. I got to bring in the business. So I have to do all that right now because we're still at the ground floor. But as you start building a business, just like anything else, you can start attracting that talent. Okay, now I can maybe hire a GC guy to do that, manage the projects for me. Now I can hire a relationships guy to work with whoever the client is. But I have so many resources that we can still walk and chew gum at the same time. We can do that. I can have a separate crew for just your guy that's doing onesie twosies on fix and flips. So it's not one or the other. We're open to anything because of the resources, not only that I have now, but if we needed to scale and add more resources, I know exactly how to do that.
So if we have borrowers or Central Florida real estate investors that want to get a hold of you, that maybe want you to walk them through a project, maybe they're a new investor, or maybe they just need help with a couple trades to finish off their job, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, just reach out. Yeah, MGI Restorations, mgirestorations.com. We have some pictures of some of our most successful projects. Before and after pictures there. All my contact information is there. You can reach out to me directly. It's no problem. And I'm always, and actually in that website, we have, we call one of those like calendars. So you can click on my calendar and just, call, we'll give you all that. Yeah, it's cool.
I think I'm supposed to have that too, on my email. But anyways, yeah, no, we're going to put all of your contact information on all the social channels for our borrowers and whoever wants to watch to reach out as well too. But man, I think you're on the right path. I'm glad you got through the storm.
Yeah.
Not sometimes people don't live to get to tell their story, you know. So it's a great story. I think it's going to be really valuable to a lot of our borrowers and our investors out there to maybe learn a little something. And you know, if anyone else is stuck on a deal or they just want guidance, I think you're a great resource for them, you know, for you to guide them through. So hopefully we can generate some business that way. But man, it's been a pleasure having you. Appreciate you.
All right.